Hi, everybody. My name is Tony Marcolini. Welcome to the podcast. It may interest you to know. I'm really excited to have with me today author and screenwriter Stan Zimmerman. Welcome, Stan.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to get to chat with you. You've had some career. As a screenwriter,
It's
now
pretty
as an
wild.
author,
Yes.
right now as an author with your
Yes.
with your book, your fascinating book. But prior to that, the majority of your work, I'd say, was screenwriting. Yes, that's it right there.
There you go. I still can't believe I have the word author around my name. I just never ever thought of myself even as a writer because I didn't read as a child. So I didn't think I could be a writer. I knew I had really fun, creative ideas. I didn't think I could do dialogue or action or any of that. And I didn't get great grades in my English class because I always felt you had to kind of suck up to the teacher and use a lot of adjectives. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to get right to the point. But then I found a medium, television, which gets right to the point.
True enough. So let's talk about, do you remember your first writing job for TV?
Oh, how could you forget that? I mean, paying gig, yes. Because you have to write a lot of spec scripts before then, just to get as my grandmother would say, get your foot in the door, which she continued to say even after we were on Golden Girls, just get your foot in the door. And we called her Mama. I go, Mama, I think my foot is in the door. I just need to get the rest of my body in. Um, but the first paying job was I was working at the Vista Movie Theater, which is a revival house now owned by Quentin Tarantino. And our mentor was working on a show, a half-hour pilot that got picked up on ABC, and he said the producers read your scripts that I gave, and they wanted to meet you. So we went in for a meeting, and I thought it was not a great meeting because the writers ahead of us, when we heard them through the wall, they were cracking jokes, and everybody was laughing, and we didn't know, we'd never been to really a meeting before, so we thought we had to, should we have written jokes and prepared something? But we're not stand-up comic people. So we just went in and were ourselves, and luckily we got the job. The show
How
didn't
ex
last, but yeah.
yeah. How exciting was that? The first, what are you doing the first time you get the news you've been greenlit for a show? Are you dancing like Tom Cruise in your underwear or what's going on?
I would not do it in my underwear, but I did dance. What we actually did, my writing partner Jim Berg and I, we jumped in the car. We went to the airport without plane tickets because we had to start on Monday, the job, and I think it was Thursday. We're like, we have to go back to New York. And I went and had my mother's credit card. I didn't even have a credit card at the time. And we're driving to the airport with no reservations or anything. And we were just going to buy the tickets there. And I'm screaming out the window, "This is life!" And had a great little weekend in New York, and then came back, and there we were suddenly walking through a studio, which was the old MGM studio. At the time, it was Lorimar owned this lot in Culver City. But this is where Wizard of Oz was filmed. It was like all the great movies, of that era were
And
filmed
you
on the
feel
lot.
it in the air, right? You can feel that in
Feel
the
it
air.
in the air.
Yeah.
Also, what was in the air was we had such stomach aches. I think we stopped at every bathroom along the way. Until we got to our office, and we didn't really even know we'd have an office to ourselves. And they like said, "Here's your office," and there were two, what they call writing partner desks, like facing each other. And we were there early, and we got there, and we put our feet up on the desk, and we were pretending to, like have cigars and blah 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 blah. And then all the writers for the show came in and saw these kids that we probably looked like we were, in 10th grade or something. So it did not make the best first impression, but we still were very excited.
I mean, arguably some of the best comedies ever, sitcoms ever, you've had the opportunity to work on. I mean, let's talk about the Golden Girls. Do you remember your first day on set with the Golden Girls?
Um, Not the first day. I mean, first you are going into the office and working and, writing stories. Um, but I think one of the very, very early days, it may have been the first, I don't remember, was meeting Estelle Getty on set. And
Who you
so
develop a wonderful friendship with.
we did. So first of all, we had to go into the office and pitch and get an episode, and just a freelance one episode. And they were testing out us and a woman writer that the producers knew. And while we were writing it, the show was not on the air, so only the pilot had been picked up. So that summer, we would go to all the free tapings just so we could soak in um, where the characters were going, and so we could write them better and hear what they were doing rather than just relying on the words of the pilot. And they liked the script so much. It was a really good first draft, which is hard to get from young writers or any new writers. And so they brought us on staff really quickly. And then we were suddenly there we were having our own offices with two desks. And then we went down to the sound stage and met Estelle Getty for a rehearsal. And she comes barreling up to us and wanting to talk to us and was very, very, very sweet. And we became fast friends after that.
Yes, I mean, that's an amazing experience, right? To work with 4, somewhat iconic actors. There you go. Yeah, did you take memorabilia from the set? That's an interesting.
No, this is a line we wrote, and I had to buy the cup. They didn't even give it to me. So it's still, I still can't believe like lines that we have written, so long ago. Like cup and shirts and the whole Sure Jan Brady Bunch movie line we wrote. It's like everywhere with memes, and it's quite exciting to have your words live on in different fashions. So, and it's now I get to wear them every day.
Your favorite line you've ever written for the Golden Girls?
Um, I think it was this beautiful scene in the first episode that Rose's mother, which was also called Blanche and the Younger Man, we got nominated for Writers Guild Award. Um, Jeanette Nolan, who played Rose's mother, says to Betty White, "Stopping me from living isn't going to stop me from dying." And when I hear that, I was like, how did we ever think of that at such a young age and to be just in that realm of a mother-daughter relationship and the age difference and caring for your parents, which eventually I did with my mother, and which is uh, I was not prepared that that was going to be the last chapter of my book.
Yeah. Wow. You know what? I remember that line. I
Really?
actually remember that episode. Yeah. Though there was
It
a
was a
lot of
really cool episode.
there's a lot of classics that come out of there. There's such Golden Girls, golden comedy that comes from that show. What was the dynamic
Well, like
like?
in what, in what planet dog ears? There's so many lines that like I just remember where we were when we were writing them for just even the first draft of the script that you don't always think it will make it to the filming because there's a lot of people along the way that could put the kibosh on it. I love that kibosh. No one talks about a kibosh anymore. Um, what was the question?
Well, I mean, I'm just like, what was the dynamic, to be on the
Dynamics
set? I mean,
between
that's
the
a
actors?
lot of strong women in one place.
Yes, but remember it was season one. So we conventional wisdom was that nobody would watch a show about four older women in Miami. They knew that it was a good show, that it was well written, that it was amazing actors, but it just wasn't where the world was. And then all of a sudden, as a group, we're watching it become this very popular um, just media and worldwide sensation and becoming a number one show. And we were there seeing it inch up, the Nielsen ratings at the time. And then it becoming so popular that you couldn't go out on a Saturday night in West Hollywood. The bars would just stop and play Golden Girls. I mean, you could, you know, walk down the street and hear it in the different bars. And so I will admit I did get a few free martinis out of it, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's to have been there, television history is happening, right? Still, everyone will look back at that and say, television history. It's like being on the set of the Dick Van Dyke Show or, some classics like that in the Andy Griffith Show, right? Yeah, there are shows that I think are iconic and timeless. Everybody loves Raymond, I think they'll stand the test of time.
But at
They
the
speak to a
time,
certain.
you're not really thinking that. You're fighting to keep your job. You're wanting to do good episodes. You want to challenge the characters. And we were so young. We knew to stop and appreciate it, but we weren't thinking, what is it going to be 20, 30 years later? They're going to still be talking about it. There's going to be cruises and conventions about it. We weren't even, number one, there weren't conventions then. So, and there were not cruises like that, um, which I will be going on the supposedly last Golden Girls cruise, which is Golden Fans at Sea in March out of Fort Lauderdale. And I've done three of them, and they are a blast. And you meet Golden Girl fans of all ages, men, women, every type of person. And we have just become this crazy little community.
Well, I mean, you could still go into a store and go into any gift shop, right? You can get, like, you just had the mug with Dorothy, this picture on it. You can go get Golden Girls memorabilia still in like any gift shop, with either saying
Now, but for
now, today,
many,
yeah.
yeah, many years, Disney was not merchandising any of it. They were just kind of like, oh, it's this show. And then I think the world kind of caught on. Wait a minute, we could have calendars and I mean there is everything. There's shower curtains, there's dresses, there's bags, there's shoes. I don't have all of those, but I have a lot. There's um, tequila shot glasses. I have those. Uh, it's very nice when people do give me those gifts, and so I have quite a collection.
Did you have a favorite character to write for?
Um, They all were unique in their own way. I mean, I obviously loved writing for Estelle, but Sophia's jokes couldn't just be just a joke. I mean, I always pictured them. It was like she was like a star baseball player, and she'd get up there and you'd hear the crack of the ball with the bat, and it would just go over outside of the stadium. That was like, and every time it was like, pew, pew. I mean, what actor can do like that? Um, Obviously Betty White is amazing, and all those years on Mary Tyler Moore, which I loved, and it was such an interesting, fun, weird, kooky character. Rue McClanahan, I mean, I love doing the accent, and I just love it was just so fun to play with her sexuality. And Dorothy, it's B. Arthur, it's Maud. I mean,
Did
nobody
you
does it
talk to
better
them
than her.
about their past? I mean, like, did you ever get the opportunity to sit with the author, talk about Maud, or to sit with Betty White and talk about Mary Tyler Moore show?
No, we were these young pipsqueaks. We were like I wasn't going to talk to any of them. Estelle was the only one I would talk to. Rue did talk to us a little bit about character stuff. B, we were so frightened. I write in the book about getting stuck in an elevator with her. I'm like, I'm not going to talk to B. Arthur. Like, uh, no, she gave off this like vibe, which I think later hearing people talk about her, she was actually really sensitive and sweet, but there was just this, side to her. Through the cruises, I've gotten to know Rue's sister Melinda, and I would love to have talked to Rue. And I didn't learn till years later that we had both. I'd gone as a junior apprentice to a summer theater camp in New Hampshire. In many years before me, she was an actress at that same theater. Like, I would love to have talked to her about that we had that weird connection. But when it's your first really big job and there was a lot of pressure there, we just knew to kind of stay out of the way, But Estelle would always kind of grab a talk to us, and thank God for that. Yeah, and then years later, I did get to talk to Betty a little bit. I was shadowing the director on Hot in Cleveland, and I was like, I gotta go in her dressing room. I don't care if she even pretends to remember me, but um, she said she did, and I got a cute picture with her. Um, and then yeah, that was a special time. We did a big benefit for Celebration Theater, which is an LGBTQ plus theater in LA, and they gave me my first directing gig, and they were doing a benefit for the theater, and they asked me if there was a script I could recommend of a Golden Girl script that the cast of Hot in Cleveland was going to read at the benefit. And I'm like, you're reading one of mine. Like, that's no question. You have to read one of mine. And they said, can you send us, a PDF of it? And I was like, Todd, we typed them. There's no PDF. I will go home. I know I have, the original copy, and I did, uh, and they read that, and just watching them read that script when you have, people like the great Wendy Malick reading your lines, and for some reason Betty White did not want to play Rose. She wanted to play Dorothy.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, she was adamant about it, and for whatever reason, I don't know. Maybe it was like, I'll show that be Arthur. I don't know. But it was a night I wanted it to just go in slow motion. I did not want to leave. And I really hung around and got to talk to so many great people, and uh, it will be a night I will always cherish. And it did make me stop again and think, hearing those words again as an older adult, like, how did I even think of those as a young adult? It just was kind of mind blowing.
Sure. I mean, and honestly, I mean, it was so well done, that show. I mean, the writing was very witty, which, I mean, is a testament really to, I guess, your sense of humor and your personality. But it was very intelligently done, um, which I think some sitcoms miss the boat on, right? I think they occasionally underestimate like the intelligence level of some of their audience, and just kind of do the same thing over and over and over again. But I thought you guys actually was a more intelligent show. It was witty. The humor was smart humor in a lot of places, and a few really important shows, right?
Well, I
That you
mean,
did
they
that
dealt with,
had bigger messages,
well, we wrote adult education was about sexual harassment like
right?
years ago. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with it. And, there was stories about dementia and suicide even. But they
And
always
even the
wanted
one
to,
when the Dorothy's sick, and they can't figure out what's wrong with her, and she tells the doctor off, and um, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of episodes where I thought were impactful, and told bigger stories. It was ahead of its time for sure.
well,
So,
it was in the kind of vein of Norman Lear shows. So it was, it hadn't really been done since Norman Lear. And then again, I didn't see it again until Roseanne came along.
oh, we have to talk about Roseanne.
Oh, we have to.
And you talk about wearing the numbered T-shirts, right? So she didn't have to. Why don't you talk? Can you tell that story?
Um, Before we were filming an episode, her and Tom came up with this idea because Roseanne was known for firing writers, like a lot of them during the first few seasons. They thought it was funny if they got numbered T-shirts, and there were 21 writers on the show, which is a lot. It's like double the amount most shows have. And they would hand out numbered T-shirts, and that way they could just point and say, "Number 13, you're hired." They would never have to learn our name. I didn't know any of that. All was a free T-shirt. I got very excited, and their numbers. I'm like, okay, my birthday is October 13th. If you want to send flowers, and I just like pushed my way into 13. As then as I'm moving up to get my T-shirt, I start hearing grumbling from the writers, pissed off that what the meaning of that was. And then I was like, oh, that's gross. I'm not going to wear that. So I've only worn it maybe three times. One was when I did CNN on the day that Roseanne got fired from the reboot. and I did wear it to the Roseanne themed WGA strike last year, I think it was. And Tom Arnold showed up and he went to greet me and spilled espresso all over the shirt. I'm like, great. But it's a Tom Arnold story, so it kind of made sense. But I cherish that. I have the Roseanne zip-up hoodie that we got as a gift from the show that we had to buy, by the way. They didn't give us just for free. They made us pay for things. Like even when she got roasted at the Friars Club, they made all the writers, they had to attend. We had to buy a ticket. How do you like that?
Okay. It's sort of odd.
Yes.
But it gives, and I don't want to mischaracterize it, but it definitely gives the vibe of a hostile work environment. Um, would you, I
Oh, it
mean,
was definitely hostile. And my writing partner was just not happy being there. He wanted to get out as soon as possible. I wanted to stay another year. Our option picked up for another year. Tom Arnold called our agent, picked us up, and then Roseanne and Tom had a huge blowout and ended their marriage. And she was like, anybody that's connected to Tom, there's the door. And I thought we had a good lawsuit there, but I didn't really want to pursue that.
yeah, I mean, again, I mean, back in that time frame, right? Roseanne's like a huge show. Um, but and I've heard, like I said, Michael was on the show talking about writing the book and kind of these crazy exploits or behavior. But while sometimes it can be characterized as sort of wild and fun, I do think that the work environment she created seems to be, a very hostile environment. Um, and that's not cool, right? I mean, today's day and age, that does get called out a lot more, unfortunately, than it did then. It's taken some time um, for that to sort of spread the news to spread that that stuff isn't cool anymore, right? You can't get away
No,
with it the
I
way
mean,
that big
go down
stars in
to
particular got away with it then.
she just didn't trust anybody, and to go down to rehearsal every day was always fraught with some tension. And what is she going to do? What is she going to say? It was never like we never got the sense of, oh, thank you for working so hard or staying till 2 o'clock in the morning. In fact, when we went for the interview for the show, the producer says, we don't put anybody on the back here. Well, that's just not good management. Like, why would you not acknowledge someone's hard work and they might work harder? It would just, I just listened to that and I was like, boy, when we run a show, we're not doing it that way.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk though about the work, the body of work. Um, you certainly wrote, some good episodes, right? The classic, the classic Kiss episode is yours. Um,
Yeah.
as well as many others. Is that your favorite? I mean, certainly you were nominated for an award for that one, but I mean, do you have another one from of that episode in your life, of that period in your life that's your favorite?
Um, I do like the other episode we wrote for it that had our name on it. I mean, obviously, we worked on all the episodes, the pot smoking one, but we wrote indeed where DJ steals the car and Roseanne smacks him, and then it brings up all the talk that you heard during the series of her and Jackie being hit by their father, and she
Yeah,
promised she would never do that to her own kid. And it was just a beautiful scene. And I have to commend Roseanne. There was like even no words. She just sat at the table and she was just wanting to find the words to apologize to him that she can't believe she did that. Because they say abuse is, it's a cycle and one
yeah.
person does it and then the next generation. And I love that we got to tackle that and that we stopped the show to have that moment. It wasn't like we had to keep going joke to joke to joke. And that's what I loved about the show. It's just like real life. And I was really impressed. And I think that was the first year she got nominated for acting for an Emmy, and she deserved to. She really grew. She started on the show. You can see season one. She's like laughing at John Goodman. I mean, she's like, it was almost like, I don't know if you remember Facts of Life. I felt like Mindy Cohn used to like laugh, at her own jokes and everyone's jokes. Um, and then she really grew into an actor.
Sure, there's
So
some
that's what
poignant moments over that original 9-year period. It's not just that's why it became popular, right? It more reflected life. So there were a lot of poignant moments too. Um, again, Roseanne, that show will go down in TV history for sure.
yeah, and then I had the honor to be sent to Russia into Moscow in 2015 to help them develop a Russian Roseanne show. Unfortunately, it didn't get on the air, but it was really interesting to explain to them that that show wasn't just jokes. They saying we need to add more humor. I was like, no, no, no. That's the style of the show. The vibe was that it was real life, like the episode when they're telling somebody that one of the relatives died. You know, he's dead. You know, with Jackie,
Yeah.
the great Brad Cat. It was so classic. It was something so heavy and serious, and yet we were laughing at it. And really good television does that. Chuckles the Clown episode of Mary Tyler Moore. I remember growing up, and it's a funeral. We should not be laughing, and
And she's
that's
laughing. Yeah.
life. That's life. It's you know it's not just one emotion. You're juggling many.
And those are the best shows, right? The ones that don't get too uh committed to just being one way, right? Because while funny shows are great, they're seldom ever remembered if that's their only thing, right? If they're all they're doing is just joke, 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 and it doesn't really reflect what life looks like. I mean, I'd argue Everybody Loves Raymond, right? I look at that show and I say it's a reflection of so many people I know, of so many families I know, right? I'm Italian, and a lot of the families besides my own I grew up at and around are Italian, and they look just like that, right? So it's a reflection where you're seeing something so familiar, and many of the Roseanne's audience come from that situation as well. Maybe they're a hard working class, uh, just trying to find the enthusiasm and the humor in what is oftentimes a struggling situation, but they manage to get through. And um, I think that it reflected so much of that, the hardship of having two parents who need to work and then have three kids you need to raise and balance, caring for the house, paying the bills, giving the best you can to the kids to try to get them to the best place they can be in life, or the best opportunities you can give them. And I think people like to see that. They like to see what they feel is their life being reflected back. And I thought Roseanne was very much like Golden Girls in that they tackled issues outside of just the traditional sitcom, uh, which, and I thought
Hmm.
in their case too, was ahead of their time. Before a lot of topics were acceptable, even if they were taboo elsewhere, they gave the topics or people a voice, right? And I think that's pretty amazing to have been part of not one but two shows, who
But I
who
think it's
credited.
because it came from the truth of it comes from the truth of the characters. It wasn't just we were telling a story to be like in the headlines. It was these people, they would really deal with these things. But that mixture of comedy and drama, which was more so in Roseanne than Golden Girls, still dealt with in both those shows. I think on Gilmore Girls, it's the same thing. It was like you were laughing. It was an hour. It was really funny and it was really smart. But then there were some really real things, like in an hour show. And, I've been so lucky to not only be involved with two shows that have lasted the test of time, but three that we're still talking about. The fan base seems like it's grown. Um,
Oh yeah, you just said Gilmore Girls, another hugely popular show.
Still, yes.
Still. So talk to me about that. You have a favorite episode, favorite moment?
Well, we got the job because we had met Amy Sherman Palladino as a writer on Roseanne, and we just instantly hit it off, and stayed friends with her after we were no longer on the show, and then she asked us to come on the fifth season of Gilmore Girls, and I just am so grateful for that opportunity, and Loved it was hard writing because it was a lot of words because they talk so fast because of the coffee. Um, but I learned so much about storytelling, and I got to meet so many great actors and writers and crew people that I'm still working with today in other projects, and going in 3 weeks to the Gilmore Girls Fan Festival, which is called the Fan Fest Society in Guilford, Connecticut, and I can't wait to see all my friends there that we've become like family. And a lot of the fans now come to different cities when I have plays opening, and their support has been so wonderful, without them behind me and pushing me a little bit, uh, getting that book done. Like they were my accountability coaches. Every year they'd be like, "Come on, Stan, great title, get it going."
Well, I mean, and you step back, I think, also and did, what what is still running today, right? And still considered um just a major part, I think, of television history. You did the Brady Bunch movies, right? I mean, that's like a
Yeah,
major part of
so
television history.
well, this original series was, but at the time when I think it's going to be like the 30th anniversary next year of the first movie coming out. Transferring TV shows to movies were bombing. Like nobody was getting it right. They kept trying them, and they were just like, "No, this is bad. This is not working." And I have to credit Thomas with to find the style. And we were the fifth writers on the movie, and then we were there all through casting and the filming of the movie all summer. We just hired for 2 weeks for just a polish of the script. And Betty was like, no, keep going. Hire them 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks. And it was really one of the best gigs because it was my thirst in love for pop culture, but also to get a little edgy. And, I got to suggest RuPaul for that. And to have a drag queen in a major studio movie was like just playing Mrs. Cummings. I mean, it was crazy, but I think they left us alone. They said, "Here's $15 million. Make whatever you want to make," and they didn't quite realize what we had made until the first screening. But that first weekend, it was they made all their money back and more. It was huge.
Oh yeah, that's, I mean, Shelley Long, right? Is in that movie?
Yeah, Shelley Long, Gary
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, well,
Taylor,
I mean,
Jennifer Lee, Olivia Hack from Gilmore Girls,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you had a great
and the
cast.
monkeys, and the monkeys,
And Shelley Long, most people will know from Cheers,
and Jean
playing
Smart,
Diane. But she
Emmy
did
Emmy winner Jean Smart
Jean
was in
Smart,
it.
yeah. I mean, these are major, major people. And they played those characters. I mean, it's not easy to play an over the top version, right? Because in the 70s when the show ran, those characters were meant to reflect and be serious. They weren't trying to be over the top. They were trying to be more like, oh, this is, the typical American family. And but there's sort of a wink sort of a thing going on with the movie, where they're slightly
Slight,
over the, yeah.
slight, and I credit Betty Thomas for directing it, and Shelley Long and all the actors. They just got it. It was real, but it was just a little bit of a wink, and I think that's why kids didn't get the sexual jokes, and yet the parents were like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you did that." And so it really tapped into many, many different audiences, and I think that's why, as generations keep watching it, it really kind of holds up.
Oh, it does. Now, I mean, we also have to touch upon, and I know you have something else to do, so I'm trying to work in as many things as I can while I have you. But we have to talk about, ladies of the 80s, right?
Uh-oh. So that was last year, a big Lifetime Christmas movie, and we had gotten the gig over Zoom. We were in Dallas with the world premiere of our play Silver Foxes, which is kind of a Golden Girls, gay men's Golden Girls, and the wonderful Michael Urie was directing it.
Is that
And
Melissa Perlman, right? was
Oh,
involved with that?
Melissa Peterman did an early of the TV pilot of it. We
Oh,
turned it into a play, and we got the gig. Our old assistant was head of casting at Lifetime, and threw our name into the ring, and we had a meeting, and they loved all of our ideas. It was an interesting assignment. They said we have these five actors, and it was like Donna Mills and Lynn Ray and Morgan Fairchild. At the time, it was Joan Collins and Jacqueline Smith. You have these five actresses. You have 15 days to shoot one location. One location. You could use a house and just decorate the rooms, but in one location, 15 days. All written this March, finished script by May 1st, because that's when the writer's strike was going to happen, and then had to finish filming it before the actor strike in August 1st. So it was a lot of pressure, but we had just a time with those writing for those ladies.
oh, it's I think
Certainly a
Nicolette
secret.
Sheridan's in it too, right?
Yeah, so Joan Collins and Jacqueline Smith, because of the really crunch time frame, they were not available. So then Lonnie Anderson and Nicolette Sheridan jumped in, and I mean, Nicolette Sheridan, God bless her, she's so funny. And there was one story. I wasn't on set because of the strike; we were not allowed. But there was a scene where she had to be pushed into the pool, and they're like, "We don't have money or time to dry you off and do a bunch of takes. We'll just make the sound of the pool." And she said to the director, "I'm going in. Just keep filming." And God bless her. She knew the joke was her falling into being pushed into the pool, you know. And she was such a trooper. She's like, "I'm doing it," and she fell, fell into the pool. So I gotta love that spirit.
Yeah, I mean, it wound up being, very, very funny. And then just an opportunity to write for, like, again, iconic, the iconic actors, actresses that you keep surrounding yourself with, right? Which just says something about you, that you are in demand, in that way, like that. It's just the best want to work with you, but also really is a just a blessing, from the outside looking in to say that you can speak to having worked or written or put words in the mouths of, all these different, people, very famous, very top of the, really the top of their field. So I give you the
And I don't take any of it for granted. I am feel so blessed and so lucky. There's one things you can have in your head and heart, the words, but then when you have actors of that caliber saying the lines, you realize how lucky you are.
sure, because you've been on the other end too of that, right? Weren't you in a show that Sean Hayes produced?
Yes, I was. It was one of Bravo's early shows. It was called Situation Comedy, and I was the host showrunner person, and it was kind of like Project Greenlight, but it was to find the next great sitcom. And I loved reality TV shows, so I was like, I can't believe I get to do this. And and it was kind of documentary, not contesty show, and then I had to be like, in my mind, am I Simon Cowell? Am I Paul Abdul? Because I had to comment on all their scripts and the progress of the show. But it also put a spotlight on how sitcoms are made. It followed us as we took these half-hour pilots and made little 15-minute presentations of it.
It must have been pretty amazing to get to work with Sean Hayes.
Well, yeah, I was a huge fan. He's such a dear, dear person. It was difficult because I was writing on Gilmore Girls at the time. I had to go to Amy Sherman Palladino. I was so nervous because I thought she'd go, "Oh, it's a stupid reality show." But she's like, "Yeah, if you want to do it." So had Bravo schedule my time on the show like 7 a.m. to 11, all mic'd up and being filmed and followed by camera. Throw the mics off, run to my car as they're still filming me, fly over to Warner Brothers, spend all day there, occasionally doing phone calls to the other set, to Sean, and then at the end of the day, at like 6:37, fly back over to Sunset Gower Studios, get mic'd up, and film till midnight. And I was never happier.
Let's talk a little bit about your creative process because I have to get that in before I can let you go. What is writing? What does that
Okay.
look like
I
for
love that.
you?
Let me go. I'm held hostage here. Yes. Um, a lot of espresso, occasionally some sugar-free Red Bull if they want me to sponsor. Um, uh, um, I'm very structured with my time when I'm writing with my writing partner Jim Berg. We have a set time where we meet at each other's homes, or
Now
we'll
you write from
set.
outlines or cold at the computer?
Oh, definitely outline. I mean, we have a period where we formulate what the show is or the idea is, and that's like a fun time when we can go out to lunch and just be chatting, and everyone thinks you're not working. No, we're working. We're, defining what that idea is, and then once we get down to really, then we have to go pitch it. We have to work out the pitch. Then once you sell it, then you have to make an outline or a beat sheet. And I'm very structured, so I love coming up with what that is. I feel that's one of my strong suits. Um, and then you can fill in the blanks, but you know where you're going. I know some people just like, oh, they just write. I think that's like a crazy idea. And I learned a lot about three-act structure. And once you see that, you go, okay, it's not, I don't have that fear of the blank page as much. But still, for me, that first draft, I just like, until I get to the end, even though it's messy, we always say, just like, put down the next thing. Don't worry about being funny. What would they just naturally say? Just get to the end of your first draft, your rough, rough, rough draft. And so we've always followed that. And then just the idea that came up with this concept, take fear off the table. Like, we're going to get to a good script. We didn't want to live in that fear and, oh my God, and we're horrible writers. It's never, yeah, there's times when it's really messy and you go, oh my gosh. And you go, no, trust it. We know each other. We're going to figure it out. And then, also to have each other's back.
So, I mean, would you say um, there's a benefit to writing with a partner? Like, what
If you
advice
can
would you
find
give to other
someone
people?
If you can find someone that sees the world the way you do, but just slightly a little to the left or to the right, you're never going to find exactly the way. But I mean, I was really lucky with Jim in that we're just all in for each other. When one person's a little down, the other person lifts each other up. And we're always saying at the end of the day, good work. We're very positive. Even when we disagree on something, we're like, I'm gonna just walk around or go to the gym and come back. Or we got into this thing where we say, all right, what percentage are you really committed to this idea? And sometimes it's hard. It's like I'll just say, all right, let's do your way and we'll see. And if it works, it works. And if not, we'll come up with.
How hard was it to write the book then? Isn't
Well,
that
I was
kind
by
of different?
myself. It was
Yeah,
very hard.
it was
I
modeled by
put it
yourself,
off.
but I mean, it's a totally different format, right?
Yeah.
To sit in scripts, I think, are very different. Well, first of all, I think and I've said this so many times, the entertainment genre that produces movies and television, it's incredibly collaborative. Right. It's got, the person writing and putting that character, that, story on paper, and then the actors who breathe life into the paper version, right? Directors and cinematographers who kind of weave your visual journey through the story. And then editors who pick the best cuts. I mean, there's so many hands in the till by the time that comes out to make it what it is. But writing a book is very different, right? It's just you and the reader, sort of. So when you're sitting behind a computer and you're telling your story,
And
and
the
I
and the
liken it
and
to
the
having a cup of
espresso.
tea, right? I liken it to like
I
having a
wanted
cup of
the
tea and telling your stories.
Yeah, I wanted to feel like we were just having coffee or tea or a drink and just, um so I did outline how I thought the chapters could be, and I kind of wanted it to be chronological. I thought that would be a good way to tell the story. And then I came up with this idea when I realized I'd been keeping journals since college. So I thought, all right, the first step I can do, that's easy. It's not writing. I'm just going to go through all my journals and pull all the journal entries about all the different wonderful women I've worked with. that I can start with. So that gave me like, oh, I've got a lot to work with. And that's like, oh, I can comment on them as a different adult person than the young person I was. And I thought that was really interesting framing of it. Um, and then again, I didn't know the last chapter was going to be the passing of my mother, who was my biggest cheerleader and my best friend. And, but I felt like all the shows I've worked with, there was so much humor with her, but there was also the pain of grief. And how do you move on every day? And felt that was very relatable. And why should I not share that if I'm really opening my heart to write this book?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And I think it's really interesting for people to get your perspective. You've lived a very unique life, right? I mean, a lot of times you get to. I've gotten the opportunity to interview actors, and to know what that experience is. But I think the screenwriter and sometimes authors come in. I interview a lot of authors who've written books, but screenwriters, it's really a different beast because you're so behind the scenes, right? The credit tends to go to the face of the show, right? The credit tends to go to, the stars. And with a book, well, then the credit goes to the author, right? Because you're out there and you wrote this, you had this personal experience with the reader. But the screenwriter is often forgotten in that process. And here you've lived this career where you've had so much influence over this genre, this comedy genre for many years, what will go down, in television history, and you've helped mold it, right? The jokes we still tell, how many times do I quote a line out of a show or a movie or something that struck me that just seems to be appropriate, like in the moment that I'm having, and it traces back to you, right? Those things trace back to things that you put out into the world that then stay around for years, and that's a really unique experience to have. It's the untold story, right? I mean, people don't think about you, but look at the impact you're quietly having on the world who doesn't even know. And yeah, I really find that fascinating.
Well, I think that's why I love going to the fan festivals and the cons, and people come up to me and they say, I hope I'm not bothering you, but I want to talk to you what the show meant to me. And I'm like, no, you don't have to understand. Like, I walk around, no one knows who I am unless I'm wearing this t-shirt. And so to be able to connect with an audience that watched it with their grandmother or years ago or now, impactful. And I think that's what led me to my focus now in doing live theater and theater that isn't means something. Like I've been doing my suicide awareness. I was just in Palm Springs on a Sunday and doing it in Tampa on a Friday and Saturday. To connect with audiences is just so, it's powerful and it feels like it gives my life meaning. And I do love the connection and meeting people.
Yeah, amazing. Do you have a preference between television and stage?
Right now, I'm just really loving being on stage, and I get to act in this suicide awareness play. It's called Right Before I Go, and I just know that I'm helping save lives and provoking discussion. And there's something about being in that room where you feel the energy. But, with TV and film, you're reaching so many people like that. And that's really cool too. Oh, I love to keep doing both if I can.
Uh, Stan, thank you so much for being here. You know, Everyone should run out and buy this book. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Um, it's very well done. And I think, I mean, it's like sitting down with this really cool person you haven't seen in a long time and going, what was that like? Or tell me your best story, or like just getting to experience somebody else's life that's been a really cool life. And so many people, I think, fly under the radar that way, right? They're doing something amazing or cool, that will historically be a part of the world long after all of us are gone, and they're virtually unknown in that regard. While you're very famous in the TV world, right? But
That's
once you get out of it to the audience only knows what they're absorbing, which is the final product. So I thought it was just a really interesting, fascinating read. I thought it was just kind of cool to step into your experience. So I highly recommend the book. I'll put a link up. Thank you for being here. And I hope as you keep doing things and writing more stuff, you'll come back and talk to me again.
definitely. Well, thank you for asking me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Bye.